Oh, where is it? So I'm working on my dried herbs today. I had to make some room for my St. John's wort out front. It was getting overtaken by the Tulsi, and there were so many plants out there that I actually just uprooted 2 plants and brought them in. I actually stuck the roots in a pot because, you know, oh, these roots look so healthy. And I have jarred up purple shiso, garden sage. I have some Tulsi that was already dried, but I will have lots more once that's dried up. And my black hollyhock, which is more like a dark red. And that's my red clover, which I will do next. Alrighty, so this is just going to be like a chit chat while I am, let's see, if I turn this off, the light might be better. While I take the heads off of my chamomile. So this year I had a pretty good harvest, pretty good crop. That's the word I'm looking for. Of chamomile. Hang on a second, I'm going to do something else here. I know that the light is just like super weird, so I'm going to try to get as much light so I don't look like really backlit. So yes, so I've had a really good crop of chamomile. I've had a good crop of purple shiso because as long as I let that stuff bloom, let a few plants bloom and just let the seeds down, they replicate like crazy the next year. And the Tulsi, it was funny because I had grown a Tulsi plant where those plants are last year, one plant, and when it was starting to go to seed, I just kept breaking up the stalks and leaving the seeds right there, and plus I saved some seeds. So this spring, I wasn't seeing them come up, and I wasn't seeing them come up, and I also wasn't seeing Tulsi very much in the nurseries. For a couple of years I saw a lot of Tulsi in the nurseries. It must have been trendy, and then I don't know, falls out of favor in the normal nurseries or what, I don't know. But I did find one variety up at Forest Green Farm. So I bought one of those and put it in, and did I find another one? No, I think I finally saw one coming up, and it just wasn't sure more were going to come up on their own, so then I put the seeds in, and then I have to remember next year, they seem to have a tendency to come up a little bit later. So I will have those to dry. I haven't really done much of anything with them fresh. I should be making, I should be making teas with them and that sort of thing, but I haven't done so yet. I suppose I could tincture some too, but I have to look up whether, you know, taking them in a tea form may actually be better. So those have done well. The dill has done pretty well this year, but I'm not saving the dill. I'm using the dill in my pickles. So that's the other thing that's done well this year is the cucumbers. So I have the bread and butter pickles that I made the other day, and at least a few jars of brine pickles, and I've got, these are just from yesterday, so, and I've got more in the refrigerator. So I may do another jar of brine pickles, because if I brine them, I don't do any kind of, I don't want to can brined or fermented pickles, because I'm afraid that it will like kill off the good bacteria. I don't know if that's true, but so I just brine them and put them in the refrigerator, and they will at least last longer than the fresh pickles or the fresh cucumbers will, because there's only so quickly I can get through cucumbers. I suppose I could juice them or something like that, but I haven't pulled my juicer out in forever. I have been giving some to one of my neighbors, and she appreciates that, and she's got a family, so they could use more of them. And apparently cucumbers are one of her favorite things. She's got food sensitivities, but she can at least eat cucumbers and mangoes. So I figure if I keep brining, as long as I have room in my refrigerator, I can brine them and put the jars in there, and at least they'll last. I'm sure they'll last at least into the fall. Whereas, you know, a fresh cucumber, after even from the garden, after about a week or so, they start getting like slimy and stuff. So anyway, so those have done well. The tomatoes are starting. The tomatoes are doing okay. I don't have enough to do anything like really special with them. The squash has done okay. I didn't try really hard with the squash. The peppers have done okay. The eggplants have done poorly. I transplanted them. Part of the reason why I think they did poorly was, well, two reasons. I think I have a very active vole out there that was tunneling around them and maybe even eating some of their roots. And I think they were in a spot where they got too much shade. So nobody still has eggplant plants in the nurseries. I mean, you're hard pressed to find any vegetable plants really in the nurseries right now. Here in this part of the country, it's funny. I mean, in the wintertime, nurseries close up. There's nothing really you can get unless it's like Christmas time or pumpkin time. And in the summertime, you know, there'll be like ornamentals and stuff, but not a whole lot of vegetable plants anyway. So I wanted to get replacements for the eggplants, but the nurseries just didn't have them. They said they like sold out fast or early or something. I don't remember what it was, so they weren't getting them from their suppliers. So they were doing, the eggplants were doing so poorly where they were in the garden. I decided to dig them up and I moved them more towards where they would have more space and more sunshine, and I dug really deep holes, and I put in some wood chips at the bottom, and I bought this castor stuff. It's like from castor oil or castor beans that's ground up, that I put in the hole to repel the voles, and put some really planted them in a mix of mushroom compost and just the soil again. So I don't know. I'll see how they do. I'm not really worried about it. I've had a few to use, and that's okay. And I had some people over yesterday, a neighbor and a friend of hers that I met. That's really neat. This woman has a local free publication called Natural Awakenings that has all sorts of, you know, mind, body, health kind of stuff. And she moved to my neighborhood, I don't know, within the past year. I don't remember when I moved into their house. And then I met another friend who's kind of into the same things, and she has a Facebook page called Homestead RVA, and I think she might have a website that's that. So it's kind of interesting that I have been meeting people that, you know, are more like-minded, and that's been good. And so I had Jessica, the woman who has the Natural Awakenings magazine. I had her and Heather, her friend, over yesterday. They wanted to come see the garden. So I showed them the garden, and then I put out, it was kind of like, it's like pre-dinner time. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to continue this conversation out where I can relax. All right, so I'm going to sit out here next to Avery, because I'm sure everybody likes to see Avery, right? So, and this is something that I talked to my counselor about too, that I am doing the things that are hard for me to do, which is going out and meeting new people and making the connections. I'm doing the work anyway, and not trying to analyze it too much, and not trying to project any kind of outcome. Oh, but I was going to say, so Jessica, they have this thing, I guess, once a month they have something called Healthy Morning Fridays, and they have a speaker that talks at one of the local, like, I don't know what you'd call them, philosophical organizations that has a lot of like mind-body stuff they used to be called Chrysalis, but now they're called the Inner Work Center. So anyway, today's talk was a guy that is like a coach. He has a company called Fear Sherpa. So it's all about, facing your fears. And it was good. I saw another mutual acquaintance there. I guess what I'm trying to express is that if I kind of take a broad view of my life right now here in Richmond, been here for 5 years, I probably have certainly more acquaintances that are not just acquaintances that are building on friendships that I did in California. There are some people who I'm really close to in California that I'm close to like online, but again, I don't, even if I was there still in the Bay Area, I wouldn't be in their communities. So one of the questions that the speaker asked today is, what is it that you really want in your life, and what do you think you can do to get it? And I actually had a really hard time thinking about what is it that I really want in my life. I think, well, my immediate answer is to move back to California, but then I think about, well, yes, I'd be able to see my kids more often, but they have their own lives now. I don't have a relationship there. I do have my sister, and I would see her more often, but again, she has her own life too. So it's not an easy answer for me, so I have to come back to what am I trying to do right now? I'm trying this summer anyway. What am I trying to do this summer? This summer I'm taking care of appointments, taking care of dental appointments, I'm taking care of doctor's appointments. I'm trying to get stuff that I've put to the side for a long time for a variety of reasons out of the way. I'm pulling money from my savings to do these things, but they're things that have to be done. And the only part that I'm having a little bit of a struggle with doing is really getting on track with my artwork. And I don't understand quite why that is. I'm hoping to go visit my niece up in New York sometime between like now and towards the end of August, because she works for an artist, and she's always been very supportive of my efforts, and see if I can do something there to be inspired or motivated. I mean, I've done a couple of things. I've done the books, and I will put the link down below. Actually, I'm going to put the link down below for my, what do you call it, blurb, and for my Society 6, which I haven't added anything new to, but there's still a nice things. There's like travel mugs and notepads and things with my photography. I haven't really put any of my other artwork on anything there, but you can go check that out. Just these kind of passive revenue streams that I'm trying to set up to at least get a little trickle in. Because speaking of fear, I think probably that's one of my biggest fears, is how, once my spousal support, once the contract for that ends, I have to be supporting myself, and I don't just want to have it be a survival thing. I want it to create a situation where I can thrive. And being somebody with not a lot of work experience, no degrees, I know I need to get creative, but to get creative, to be an entrepreneur or whatever, I think one has to have the confidence. So there's all these things that have to work together that really haven't come up. But I'm making the effort, and that's a good thing. And I'm doing the garden, and I'm, even if I haven't produced an abundance of vegetables, I've got my herbs, I've got my flowers, I've got my goldfinches out there. And my tiger swallowtails. Out there this morning, there's a hummingbird and a tiger swallowtail. And yesterday there was 2 of them on my red sunflower. So that was pretty neat. And I am still enjoying my book that I'm reading, Waking the Witch. I'm enjoying that a whole lot, by Pam. I'm forgetting her last name. But if you look up Waking the Witch, you'll find it. Really, really good book. Really resonates with me quite a lot. And I'm thinking about how do I do good for myself and do good for the planet, and have a life where I feel engaged and connected and loved. It's taking a day at a time. So that's all. That's this Friday. It is Friday, right? I don't know what I'm doing this weekend. My days since I do kind of the same thing every day and work on my own projects, it's hard to figure out what I'm doing. Got 2 appointments next week, Monday and Friday, and in between that, I have, is that next week? I guess, yeah. Maybe I just have one. Sorry, I'm talking to myself. 2 appointments, 1 meetup with somebody that I met today, because one of our homework was to get together with another person and talk about how we've worked with stuff from the talk, which was something about fear, not embracing fear, but something like that. And then my oldest brother, is in Charlottesville he's been there already, and he's there for 10 days for some kind of conference, and so I will go out and pick him up one of the days next week, and he'll come spend the night, and maybe we'll go someplace, Williamsburg or President Monroe's estate or something like that. I don't know. But this weekend, I'm going to have to look at my calendar, because I thought for sure there was something. Oh, I went to see a movie with another friend last Sunday, I think. The Last Black Man in San Francisco is awesome. It's kind of an indie movie. Well, it isn't kind of an indie movie. It is an indie movie. So you may not find it playing where you are, but if it comes on DVD, it's so good. It's kind of about gentrification, but it's more about the relationship of these 2 guys. It's just really, I found it very, very touching. So that's it. So anyway, I hope you're all doing well, and we'll have a good weekend. Bye!